Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name's Keir Smith. The other day I was watching the great Pete Pardo on the fabulous Sea of Tranquility channel, and he hit upon an interesting topic. He held up, I think, 20 albums by bands and artists that he loved, but the specific album he held up, while he acknowledged that he liked the album, he regretted the fact that he didn't love it. So this sparked my interest immediately because there's so many different bands and artists who I love, and I have such a huge admiration for their back catalogues. But there's always one album where I think, yeah, I don't quite understand where all the praise comes from. And I do find myself saying, I don't know why I don't like this more. I should like it more. Everything else that this band or artist does is great. So what is it about this album? So I gathered together 10 albums by some great bands and artists who I love, but for whatever reason, these particular albums don't strike the same chord with me as they clearly do with others. Okay, so I'm going to jump straight into the deep end with this and hold up this all-time classic, apparently, Led Zeppelin 2 from 1969. I've never been a big fan of Whole Lotta Love. The music's great, the solo's explosive, but I don't like Robert Plant singing on it. All of that overly sexual yelping and hollering. I find it a bit annoying, truth be told. What is and what should never be is pretty dull to me. I've never liked the Lemon song. Thank You's okay. So for me, side one is a bit of a letdown, but I think side two is fantastic. I love Heartbreaker, a big favourite of mine. Living Loving Maid is good fun. Ramble On, very good track. I like Moby Dick, and Bring It On Home is very good too. So side two is very strong, side one, not so much. It's a good album. I still listen to it. I can still enjoy it, but it's by no means a classic in my book. And I think that Led Zeppelin's back catalogue is really strong, so perhaps this album falls by the wayside for me in comparison to some of their later and better works. Give me Led Zeppelin 3, Led Zeppelin 4, Houses of the Holy, Physical Graffiti, even Presence over this. I'm a huge Yes fan, and this particular album is a big favourite among Yes fans. Fragile from 1971. And I go back and forth with this album. I listened to it again recently, but sometimes I think it's very good, and then other times I think, no, it's still falling short for me. I see this as a bit of a transitional album. It's the start of Yes becoming really great. And of course, there's some great stuff on this album. It's bookended by the brilliant Roundabout and the pulsating Heart of the Sunrise. Both fantastic tracks. The band compositions are largely good. I really like South Side of the Sky, a heavy track, but I was never overly keen on Long Distance Runaround. That dizzying melody has never quite sat well with me. And I don't think that a couple of the solo tracks here are much good. Rick Wakeman's Cans and Brahms, for example, and Bill Bruford's 5% of Nothing at just over half a minute long is so inconsequential. It could have easily been left off the album for me. I enjoy John Anderson's We Have Heaven. I like the way that the vocals cross over on that. That's a good track. And Chris Squire's The Fish is a fantastic song. Again, John Anderson's singing on that is superb. And Steve Howe's Mood for a Day is a nice piece of classical guitar playing. It's okay, yeah. But I find that the album is a little bit stop-start. One good track, then one not so good. But I persevere and I still enjoy Fragile. I think it's a good album. But again, I like everything after this album much more. Close to the Edge, of course. Tales from Topographic Oceans, Relayer, Going for the One, Tormato. Yes, even Tormato and Drama. But when I see fans talking about their top 5 Yes albums, Fragile seems to be in most people's, but not mine. Up next, another big album by another really big band. This is U2, The Unforgettable Fire from 1984. I'm a big fan of U2, and again, I like this album. I feel like I should like it more, but it's a tale of two sides for me. I really like side one. A Sort of Homecoming is a really good opener. I really like that song. Pride, the big hit single, big song. I love that. Wire, rocks. The title track is one of my favourite songs by U2. And Promenade, as slight as it is a lovely atmospheric piece which I really enjoy. 4th of July is okay, but Bad is bad. I know that this is a hugely popular song in U2's back catalogue with their fans, but relocation, isolation, separation, celebration, Asian, it's annoying. And the song never gets out of first gear either. That's a problem for me. I do like Indian Summer Sky, again, rocking, and that lifts me out of the gloom of bad. Elvis Presley in America is okay, and the closing track, MLK, is okay. Again, I want to like it more, but it has this gospel tinge to it, which I don't like. Again, I persevere with it. It's a good album, but not a great one for me. And again, I much prefer everything that came after it. The Joshua Tree, much better. Acton Baby, certainly. Zooropa, Pop. But for me, The Unforgettable Fire gets an awful lot of praise. Again, I think it's the start of U2 becoming really great. Another big artist who I am a huge fan of, David Bowie with Heroes from 1977. And in fairness, this album suffers a little bit more so because it comes after what I think is possibly my favourite David Bowie album, or is it Station Station? I'm not sure, but it's either Station Station or the brilliant Low. And Heroes, musically and artistically, treads the same path as Low. It copies the same format, with the main songs being on side one and side two being mostly instrumental, but it's simply not as good for me. I do like this album. I listened to it again today in preparation for this video just to see whether there was anything that I was still missing after all these years, but I pretty much came up with the same answers. Now, the title track, a big favourite with David Bowie fans, not for me. Again, it's a song that never really shifts from first gear, and as quietly anthemic as it may be, it's never struck a chord with me. Honestly, it wouldn't be in my top 50 Bowie songs. The opening track, Beauty and the Beast, I really like that. That's a great opener. And Joe the Lion, which follows that, does so in good form. Sons of the Silent Age is good, but I really like Blackout. That's fantastic. Kiss You in the Rain. I love Bowie's vocals on that song. I do quite like the largely instrumental V2 Schneider. That's a good track. Sense of Doubt is okay, but Moss Garden sounds like spa music, all twinkling and tranquil, but not necessarily in a good way. And the creaking sound of Newcomb isn't much fun either. But after that mild musical suffering, let's say, we get some light at the end of the tunnel with the amazing The Secret Life of Arabia. Oh, I love this song to bits. The arrangement, the music, the lyrics, the vocal, the hand claps, absolutely brilliant. Certainly ends the album on a big high. I like this album. I do. I enjoyed it today, but I wish I loved it, but I don't. What about this album? The Rolling Stones, Black and Blue from 1976. Now, admittedly, this album isn't considered to be one of the great Rolling Stones albums. You know, everyone talks about that quartet of albums, starting with Beggar's Banquet, onto Let It Bleed, Sticky Fingers, and ending with Exile on Main Street. But I see people talking about this album, and I read so many comments where it comes in for a lot of praise, and I don't hear that. Not at all. I think this album is a bit of a sloppy mess, and it is loose and funky Rolling Stones. They're going for the grooves, man, and I do rather enjoy that about the opening track, Hot Stuff, which, although it goes on a bit too long, I like it. Hand of Fate is more typical of the Rolling Stones sound, and I think that that's a really good rocker. And Cherry O Baby, albeit a cover version, is a good version. I like that, it's good fun. But Memory Motel is most definitely the pick of the bunch here for me. A beautiful, soulful ballad about love on the road with some excellent lead guitar work by Harvey Mandel. The Rolling Stones were trying out new guitarists before finally settling upon Ronnie Wood. So side one is largely good, but turn the record over and it's a mess. Hey Negrita is a loose, funky jam, but not great. Melody, equally loose, is a jazz tinge thing that doesn't work for me. And Fool to Cry, big hit single, but I've always thought that's a bit mawkish. And Crazy Mama at the end is decent, but hardly strong Stones material. At 8 tracks, the album is slight, and it's not a good album for me. It has its fans, Black and Blue by the Rolling Stones, but I think it's their worst of the 70s by some distance. This next album, I remember it being released as clear as yesterday. I was 14, nearly 15 years old. What's the Story, Morning Glory by Oasis. God, I loved this album as a kid. And it is a good album. I can still listen to this album and enjoy it, but its star has certainly faded over the years. Hello is a great, rousing opener. I love that song. That could well be in my top 10 Oasis songs. And that's followed by Roll With It, which was the lead single for the album, which of course was beat to number one by Blur's Country House. And it's easy to see why. Roll With It is Oasis by numbers. It's a pretty dull affair, if I'm honest. On to Wonderwall. God, if I never heard this song again, it wouldn't bother me. And I was never much of a fan of it anyway. I much preferred Hello, Roll With It, and Don't Look Back in Anger, which comes after it. It was okay, but I never thought too much of it. I find its popularity absolutely staggering. It's amazing. God knows why this song strikes a chord with so many people. And if you don't hear it on the radio, then you'll hear it in the stores on the high street. And if you don't hear it there, you'll wander into a pub and some guy will be singing and performing it. But Don't Look Back in Anger is much better. A great song, very anthemic, and I'll always like that song. Another that's possibly creeping into the overplayed territory, but it is a great song. And that leads us on to Hey Now, which is so dull and boring. The same verse repeated 3 times. And Noel Gallagher himself said that for a lot of songs on this album, he simply couldn't be bothered to write the second verse. Well, Hey Now could have been a good song, but it isn't, purely because it's so repetitive. Some might say it's a really good track. That was actually released some 8 months before this album, but was included on the album, and it's certainly got a place here. It's a really good song. Cast No Shadow, was never bothered about that, but I listened to it today and some nice guitar playing on that, but it's okay. She's Electric is a joyous affair, a fantastic song, great fun. Morning Glory is absolutely brilliant. That really kicks the door down and demands to be heard. Possibly my favourite Oasis song, possibly, probably. And I always like Champagne Supernova. It's a good track, a fitting close to the album, and a great guitar solo by Paul Weller too. And elsewhere you've got those 2 short instrumental passages, little snippets of the Swamp Song, which are welcome. But for me, they could have simply included the full version of the Swamp Song and put that in the middle of the album. That would have elevated the album for me, certainly. This album was huge and continues to be hugely popular with the kids of today, and what with brothers Gallagher going out on tour next year as Oasis with whoever else they decide to include in the band. This album celebrates its 30th anniversary. It's going to come in for a big reappraisal. Held up, I Shouldn't Wonder, as a beacon of light, as one of the greatest British albums ever made. But it's not. It's a bit patchy. Give me Definitely Maybe, Be Here Now, Standing on the Shoulder of Giants. I'd even argue that large parts of Healing Chemistry are as good as large parts of this. Pink Floyd, I wish that I could call this album a masterpiece. So many fans do, but I don't quite hear it that way. Medal from 1971, a very good album. I really enjoy it. Played it today, loved it. You see, I can fall into biased territory when talking about Pink Floyd. I don't love this album. I wish I did. Like I say, I think it's very good, but it does fall short for me. Let me explain. One of These Days, great opener, love it. Love that sinister, muffled vocal by Nick Mason. The twin bass work, fantastic. Gilmour's slide guitar, exemplary. And then you get the come down with the folksy, wistful Pillow of Winds, which is nice enough. I enjoy it. It's good. Fearless is much better. I really like that. That is a great track. That shuffling, ascending chord pattern is a really nice thing. And yes, Saint-Tropez is a bright and breezy tune. I mean, my word, Roger Waters never sounded so happy and content. But the slow, dull, bluesy Seamus, that's the dog, is nothing. And yes, of course, the album is saved by the sidelong epic, the majestic, magnificent, truly amazing Echoes. One of the greatest compositions in the history of rock and roll. Musically, lyrically, the way it shifts in styles through its many passages, it's otherworldly. It's very good. I really like the album, but it's not quite the masterpiece that some people make it out to be, in my humble opinion. Medal. Up next is Paul Weller, who I am a huge fan of. The Jam will always be one of my top 10 favourite bands, and I like an awful lot of what the Style Council did do, but it was quite surprising. By the end of the 80s, Paul Weller's stock was low after all of that great work. But he fought back with a very impressive debut album, the self-titled one, and that was followed by the even better Wild Wood. Which brings us to this album, Stanley Road from 1995, which sold really well on the back of some really big hit singles and earned him that Modfather moniker. As I said earlier, he was hanging out with Oasis, playing that great lead solo on Champagne Supernova, and Noel Gallagher has always given Paul Weller the very highest praise, and rightly so. And Stanley Road is a good, sometimes I think it's very good. It's an accomplished body of work, but it's a bit by numbers for me. It's a little bit uninspiring, and I don't say that lightly because Paul Weller is someone who inspires me greatly. Like I said, two really big hit singles in The Changing Man, which borrows its riff from ELO, but that's a great song. I've always loved that. And Paul Weller thought he'd have a go at writing a modern love song with You Do Something To Me, and what a song that is. Love the guitar solo in that. Out of the Sinking was another popular single, and I like that. That's a good song. And Broken Stones was and continues to be a hugely popular song with Weller fans, and he always seems to play it live, but I've always found that song really dull and boring. But Porcelain Gods, I Walk on Gilded Splinters, and Woodcutter's Son, they're okay. They're alright. Time Passes is nice enough. The title track is a good track. That's a jaunty piano-led thing. I enjoy that. Pink on White Walls is, again, a bit slight for me, but Whirlpool's End, what an amazing track that is. I love that. A swirling, psychedelic guitar rock song. Brilliant. But then after that, we come down with the closing track, the soulful gospel ballad that is Wings of Speed, which it's okay, but in truth, I've never warmed to that song. So some great, some good, some and some forgettable. I love Paul Weller, love his solo albums, but Stanley Road for me would rank low. Up next, another prog classic, Genesis, Foxtrot from 1972. Now I've included this album here, but perhaps unfairly so, because if the truth be told, I'm still in my infancy with this album. I only bought it around a year, 18 months ago, and I've listened to it half a dozen times. It is growing on me. I listened to it again today and I enjoyed it more than I did the previous 5 listens. Yes, Watcher of the Skies is brilliant. I knew that after one listen. A great opener and a great Genesis track. And Timetable is a nice song. Now, I must say that I'm not as in love with Peter Gabriel as a lot of Genesis fans are, but I do enjoy his vocals here, and even more so on the excellent Get 'Em Out by Friday. That packs a serious punch. I love that song. But Can Utility and the Coastliners is the weak point of the album for me, certainly, and that's followed by the short and slight Horizons. But then you get the grand finale, the sidelong epic, Supper's Ready. Now I like this, I do like it, and again, this one is growing on me all the time. I mean, that section at 6.5 minutes to 9 minutes where the band are all in, they're on top form. They sound amazing. That is a great passage of music. But then the track seems to retreat every now and then, which can happen when you've got a sidelong epic of 23 plus minutes. I understand that, but it falls back into this folksy, pastoral, very English sounding meandering. And as I say, I do understand the peaks and troughs of the sidelong epic, but I am very much enjoying the journey that I'm on with this track. I'm not there yet, but it's good. It's very good. In particular, I think the ending is fantastic. It needed a big ending, and we certainly get that. Steve Hackett's guitar playing is superb, first class. I'm going to give this album another listen tomorrow, and I'm looking forward to doing so. It is a good album. I don't think it's quite the classic that others say it is. For me, it's not quite as good as Selling England by the Pound, for example, and maybe not Nursery Crime. So I'm not quite there with this one yet, but Foxtrot, I'm getting there. I feel like I'm getting there. And last but not least is an album that I really wish I loved. I really do wish I loved this album, but I don't. And I've tried and tried and tried again with it, but it never gets any better. It is the debut album by Wings, Wildlife, from 1971. Now, for anyone who's watched more than a few of my videos, you know how much I love Paul McCartney. The man can do almost no wrong. I'll forgive him almost anything, and I'll forgive this too. I absolutely will. And I've got to be fair, because if I'm calling the Rolling Stones Black and Blue a sloppy mess, then Wildlife is... it's not very good. It sounds like a rough garage band trying to get a few things together, playing a few songs and seeing if anything good sticks. And of course, I know the history of the album. The album was recorded very quickly within the space of a week. It's loose, it's certainly unfinished, and it's not good enough. Mumbo is a rocking opener, full of the beans. Paul wails out these undecipherable noises. I quite enjoy it. Bit Bop has grown on me through the years. It's quite a nice melody, but slight, it most definitely is. And Love is Strange is kind of nice. A loose, funky, reggae-styled take on the Mickey and Sylvia song. The title track has some grit. That's a great track. A sprawling, bluesy number with some great vocals by Paul and some great lead guitar work too. Some People Never Know is nice enough. A nice melody. I like it, but certainly it goes on too long. And I Am Your Singer is short and sweet. Paul and Linda singing nicely together. It's okay. Hardly strong material. Tomorrow is a typically carefree, jaunty McCartney pop song, which I really enjoy. That's a really good track. And the slow, brooding, orchestral sweep of Dear Friend is magnificent. Beautiful vocal from Paul. I love that song. You've also got a couple of instrumental passages in there, short and sweet. Bit Bop Link is sandwiched between I'm Your Singer and Tomorrow, and then you get Mumbo Link after Dear Friend, which closes the album. It threatens to rock and take off, but sort of peters out. I don't dislike anything on Wildlife. There's not much to dislike, but it's just so slight and inconsequential. There's really not much to it at all. It's lo-fi, it's charming, it's the humble beginnings of a band. Agreed, agreed, agreed. It's not good enough. I'll always play this album, I'll always try again with it, and I'll always point out to people that it is home to some very good songs, especially the title track and Tomorrow and the brilliant Dear Friend. But in the cold light of day, the rest of it, I could take or leave it. You can bet your bottom dollar that I'm playing Wildlife tomorrow. I'm going to give it a big cuddle and tell it how much I love it. So there you go, 10 great bands and artists and some very good albums there. But for me, I can't say I love them. They're not quite up to scratch for me. But what do you think? Am I being too harsh on these albums? Are they better than I give them credit for? Do you love these albums? Please leave your thoughts down in the comment section below. And please do let me know if there's a band or an artist with a particular album that you don't quite get, or you don't see what all the fuss is about, despite the plaudits it may get. And as always, thank you so much for stopping by and watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and Merry Christmas everyone. I'll see you for my next video sometime soon. Bye for now.